Hi, I'm Michael Clark and welcome to the road trip. Now today in the Blue Ocean studio, we've got something that's actually quite special. We're really excited about it. We're going to be doing a little bit of a long-term test, and it's on a 2014 Chevrolet Silverado with the crew cab configuration, the 6.5-foot box, and the Z7-1. But as you know, on the road trip, we've talked about the Silverado and the GMC Sierra quite a bit. So we wanted to do something a little bit different. Now, every single winter, you're going to be seeing a lot of different tests for winter tires. And as we know, they tend to work a lot better than all-season tires. So we're not really breaking any new ground by talking about that. And plus, it's pretty hard to get winter tires when March rolls around. Not to mention the fact that on a vehicle like this with 20-inch rims, that's definitely one of the harder sizes to find. So what we decided to do is something very unique. And we're going to be taking this particular Chevrolet Silverado and giving it a very unique winter tire test. Now, I put the call out to our friends at Fountain Tire, and they were able to find us a set of really nasty, ugly winter tires that were in the bin. Now, they are rated as winter tires. These are Federal Himalayas that we're using. They're one of the lower cost winter tires that you can find. Not only that, but we're putting them on 18-inch wheels, and they're nowhere near the size. The reality is that we're doing everything wrong to prove a point, and that is whether or not winter tires, used winter tires, are both a good idea and whether or not they actually perform better in the snow and on the ice as opposed to the new 20-inch Goodyear Wranglers that are on this particular Silverado. In fact, we've got a special treat because our cameraman, Brian Park, has decided to let us test his car, his 1998 Saturn, with no ABS, but it does have the Michelin X-Ice 2, so we want to basically pit these vehicles against each other a little bit just to see exactly how much of a difference you get by using winter tires. Now, that's not all we're going to be doing with this Silverado. In fact, we want to ask the question, how much can you actually drive this particular V8, the 5.3, in V4 mode? Because, as with many V8 engines in the General Motors trucks over the years, there's the ability for the displacement to shrink from 8 cylinders to 4. And by doing this, we want to see if it truly is the most fuel-efficient V8 that we've ever had a chance to test. And lastly, myself and Brian Park love to take vehicles on adventures, and there's no better adventure in Manitoba than the spring and the mud. So if you've got questions, thoughts, or feelings on anything automotive, send an email to steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. Buckle up, it's time for the road trip. Now, it's important to know that if you're thinking about getting yourself a set of pre-owned winter tires, well, one of the first things that you have to be concerned with is whether or not you're going to be able to find a size that works for your vehicle. And as we mentioned, we're going to be doing a few things wrong here today, but in a controlled environment to show you the differences that we mean. Now, these particular tires, as we mentioned, these are the Federal Himalayas. They're a P235/60 R18, and if you know your tire sizes in comparison to that Silverado over there, we're actually dealing with about a 9% difference in size. So to give you an example as to what that means, if you're driving with these tires down the highway and you think that you need to get to 60 kilometers an hour, well, you actually have to do 66. That's how much of a difference you can be experiencing if you're using the wrong type size of tires. But the reason that we're testing them is because, well, quite simply, this is what we could find. And that's what you're going to run into if you're looking for pre-owned winter tires. You're not always going to be able to find the exact size. Now, if you talk to your tire expert, they'll be able to tell you what you can do that's going to keep everything more or less in check. Maybe up one size, down another size, depending on the size of wheels and such. But it's important that you talk to your tire experts like our friends at Fountain Tire. Now, the thing I wanted to show you here is the condition of these tires. Now, from a 20-foot glance, they're black, they're round, what could possibly be wrong with them? But what I did is I had a chance to talk to Jose Ferreira at Fountain Tire. Now before he gave us these tires, he gave them a once over, and to be safe, he also pointed out that he wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be taking these out on a public roadway. Let's talk to Jose and see what he's found when it comes to different tire construction.
What condition is it when you buy a tire and it's not mounted on the rim? There's no air pressure there. Is it leaking? Is there a bulge on it? Is there a separation? How is it internally of the tire that you can't see? How's the steel belt construction? Has it had a lot of repairs on it and now the steel construction is actually rusted inside? Because a lot of time when you get a tire repaired, you're going to have water that's filtering through the rubber compound into the steel belts. Now those steel belts over time, they actually start rusting and then separating. And that is the construction of the tire that holds the tire together. So what condition are those when you do buy a used tire? One factor there. Another factor is, are you really going to get the traction out of that used tire that you thought you're going to get? Like, is the true traction of the tire still there today after whatever time this unit has got on it, right? We know that as time goes by, depending the quality of that used tire you're purchasing, it may no longer be a winter tire. The materials that make it a winter tire may already been gone from that tire. You may be buying a winter tire and it's truly the traction you're going to get out of it is a used all-season tire. So those are some factors, and there's many, many more factors that you should be considering when you are purchasing a used winter tire.
Okay, and today we're going to explain to you what the basic numbers on the tire mean. So right here, we'll start with the first letter, which is a P. Now the P stands for passenger. You could also have an LT, which would be a light truck, which would be a heavier tire. You could also have an ST, which would be a special type, a trailer tire. Next number we have here is the 235, which is the section width. So the widest part of the tire in millimeters. Next, we have a 60. Now this is the aspect ratio. This tells you how much of percentage the sidewall is in relation to the section width. So this one is 60, meaning that the sidewall is 60% the section width of 235 millimeters. Now we have an R. R stands for radial. Pretty much every tire you're going to get now is an R. We don't really see bias ply too much anymore. The last number in the first set of numbers is an 18, which is just your rim size, 18-inch rims. We have another little group of numbers after it. Here we have a 103T. The 103 is your load range, and T is your speed rating. Now, these will be necessary to match up, especially when you get into a truck situation, to make sure that you can haul the proper load.
Well, as you know on the road trip, as we continually tell you, we really don't have anything in the way of budget. So what we do have is we have a parking lot on a Sunday, deserted and gated. So this is about as safe as we can use for what we need to do, and obviously safety is our first concern. So behind us, we've got the Silverado with the all-season Goodyears on it right now. Now what we've done is we've done some test passes to make sure we have enough of a buffer for safety. Our goal is to get the truck up to 50 kilometers an hour and then full ABS lock. And what we're going to do is mark exactly where we ended up with these particular tires. Now we're also going to be doing this with another safety method. So when it's time for me to start moving, our cameraman Brian is going to give me a signal, and when it's time for me to stop, he will also give me a signal. So we're going to try to get the lines as tight and concise as we can. But we're also going to do a test with a vehicle that doesn't have ABS but does have winter tires, and we want to see exactly how well it does. So it's time for us to get started, so I better back into position. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up into position with the Silverado and get ready to take a run. Now to do this safely, of course, as we mentioned, we're in a controlled environment, so no one's coming in or out, nice and safe. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to proceed up to 50 kilometers an hour. We've done some test runs already to make sure we've got enough space. And as mentioned, there's no one going to be coming into this area while we're doing the test. Safety first. So what we'll do is we'll get things rolling, and then once the brakes are applied and we do stop, I'm going to get out of the vehicle and mark the position with a pylon. So we're going to do a few passes, see if we can actually improve a little bit, but basically we'll be able to figure out a number as to how much feet it's going to take to stop the Silverado with the 20-inch Goodyear All Seasons that are on it right now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to back into position here, and we've already marked off our line, so we know exactly where we have the point of no return and make sure that we slam on the binders. Now we've got the cameras going from a few different angles to try to give you an idea of exactly what we're going to be experiencing here. Now it's important that we also get people to realize that this is not a test to be taken lightly. We're just not out here having fun. We want to make sure that we show the differences between all-season tires as well as winter tires when it comes to winter performance. So we're going to back into position here, try not to hit some of these lovely pallets, and using the backup camera as well as the rear sonar, and there is the beep. Okay, we're in drive. We've got our seat properly adjusted, pedals adjusted, because this Silverado does have the power pedals. So I want to make sure that when I slam on the brakes that I'm going to have the best possible contact, and as we've mentioned, trying to break that brake pedal off is what you want to do. So let's bring up the revs and let's launch. Let's place our pylon. Okay, so that's our first run, and I will tell you that from the speed that was shown on the digital readout, it was a little bit hot. So hit the binders at about 53 kilometers an hour. And as mentioned, right now we're still using the all seasons. So we're going to take a few more runs and see if we can improve on exactly where that pylon is. I came in hot again. Okay, that was my fault. I came in a little hot. Well, I better get another pylon. Now, this is actually something I wanted to point out, because when it comes to vehicle testing, sometimes adrenaline can take over. But as we've mentioned, we're doing this in a controlled environment. So we want to make sure that we have enough of a buffer, and as mentioned, we've already tested that. So, as you can see, we overshot things a little bit. Now let's see if I can actually keep it right on 50K and improve on this. There we go. Well, that's a lot better. Okay, 50K on the nose. And as you can see, we've got quite a variance compared to the last couple of runs. Now, as we mentioned, our first one was at about 53. Our second one, well, was probably about 56, 57. But this particular run, we did it at 50K. So, as you can see, it's amazing how much speed is going to play a factor in how well you're going to be able to stop in any condition. Now, I should also point out that we've had a particularly balmy day here in Winnipeg. And even though there's a heck of a lot of snow left, we're dealing with a temperature outside, according to the temperature gauge on the Silverado, of 7 degrees Celsius. Why is 7 degrees Celsius important? Well, as you'll hear from winter tire manufacturers, that's when the all-season tires start to lose their elasticity. So we couldn't ask for better weather for a demonstration. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the Silverado inside to the Blue Ocean studio, and we're going to switch it over to the different tires. And these, of course, are the Federal Himalayas, very used, very abused. And we're going to see if we can actually improve on the marks we've made with the all seasons. Now, as we mentioned before, we knew going in that we were going to have a really hard time finding the exact size of pre-owned winter tires for this Silverado tester. And that's something you should keep in mind if you're trying to find used winter tires, because chances are you're not going to find the exact size. And just to really drive that point home, the tires that we've got on here, well, it's about a 9% difference from the stock 20 inchers that we were previously testing. Now, as you can see, there's an obvious visual difference here, but the other thing we're going to be dealing with is a mechanical advantage from the simple fact that we just don't have as much tire and wheel here. So we're pretty much sure that not only with the winters we're going to stop better, we're probably going to stop a lot sooner because, well, we're simply not dealing with as much mass. Well, I think it's time to get things going, but, oh, you know what? I just realized something. We forgot to take the labels off the tires. Oh, let's see. They're all wet. Oh, I know. Okay, folks, let me just grab a pylon here. Now let me show you how excited I am about this. Now, as we mentioned, we figured there had to be about a 5 to 6 kilometer an hour variance for what we're doing with the difference in the tire sizes. So by doing that, I hit this at 56 kilometers an hour. Now, you remember what happened with the 20 inchers a little further up when it came to that speed. So at 56 kilometers an hour with the 18-inch wheels with, as far as we're concerned, one of the least expensive winter tires that you could get for the budget, well, that's what I call a distance. Okay, so that was at 56 kilometers an hour. Now we're going to try to get as close to that as we can, but you know, sometimes I'm a little hot. Okay, well, as we know, I like to come in a little hot. Now, you're probably wondering exactly how much faster I was going here. And I will admit, I might have pulled back just a little bit on the brake pedal, just to give you an example of how that can make a difference. So, as you can see, with this particular pylon setup, we came definitely quite a bit further. But the interesting thing is that even though we came in hot here, and let me tell you how hot, 62 kilometers an hour. So that's 62 kilometers an hour with these particular tires. This is 50 kilometers an hour with the all seasons. This can mean all the difference. Okay, well, as you can see, we came in a little bit hot. Do you want to know how hot? 73 kilometers an hour. And as you can see, 73 kilometers an hour, and this is actually even less speed. So this here represents our worst stop with the 20 inchers. I gotta tell you, I think we've proven the point that even used winter tires can definitely mean the difference when it comes to winter performance. And it's important to note that we're not even really dealing with the cold grips of winter. We're dealing with 7 degrees Celsius. So what better way to prove that these tires actually live up to the compounds, to the technology, to the way they're supposed to work. But you know what? No test like this would be complete unless we took a look at some different technology, like a 1998 Saturn. Okay, folks, Brian's about to hit this here at 50 kilometers an hour, and he's doing this with a 1998 Saturn with no ABS and with Michelin X-Ice 2 tires. Let's take a look at how well he does. Okay, folks, now Brian's going to take another run with the 98 Saturn that does not have ABS. How fast were you going there, Brian?
That was bang on about 52.
52 kilometers an hour. Well, let's take a look at exactly where the pylons are. So I would say that judging from this one, and judging from, well, from where the Saturn is sitting right now, I'd say you bettered it by about 5-6 feet.
Practice makes perfect. It all depends on where I hit the brake. If I hit the brake on the snow, I'll shoot right past the cones. If I get on the brake right where it's just a wet spot, it nosedives and stops in about a car length.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get Brian to try it strictly on the concrete. See what happens. How fast was that run, Brian?
About 55 kilometers an hour.
And now that, of course, is on the wet pavement. And one of the things we know about winter tires is they're designed to work well in the wet. So what's your feelings from the other side of the brake pedal?
A lot of it has to do with the surface that you're on, the timing of the stop. But I think generally overall you can tell a lot of it has to do with tires.
Now, as luck would have it, Brian Park's feet are apparently completely 12 inches with the clogging boots that he's got on right now. So he's going to take a quick scientific measurement and see exactly where we end up with our best stop with the all seasons and our best stop with the winter tires. Well, Brian, how do we do?
That's exactly 30 feet.
30 feet. Wow. You can fit a lot of life into 30 feet.
That you can.
Well, Brian, I'd have to say a very enlightening test that we did today on the road trip. And I got to tell you, I was actually wondering how much of a variance we were going to have between the all-season tires and the winters, but 30 feet?
It was pretty pronounced. I was quite amazed myself, actually. I didn't think there was going to be that much of a difference.
Well, and that's the thing. Do you think that enough people really understand the differences out there between all seasons as opposed to winters? I mean, I get a lot of people sending me emails sometimes, and there's a lot of people that think it's a scam.
Just imagine if we had new snowflake tires on this thing when we were doing that test, as opposed to ones that were half burnt off already.
Well, that's the thing to remember, and that a lot of people don't realize, is that a lot of winter tires, you have that elasticity in the compound, but there's different elements in different manufactured tires where once you get down to, say, 50% wear, the tire still looks good, but whatever was there that was helping you, well, it's gone.
Yeah, and the winter tires start off with a pretty heavy-duty tread depth to start with as well, over the all seasons, which may have a slightly shallower tread depth. And, when we're in the slushy stuff that we had today, I think that's going to make a big difference.
That's true. And the other thing that we have to remember is that what we were dealing with today, it was by no means a high-end winter tire. So I think what we've certainly been able to prove today, that even the worst winter tire is better than a practically new all-season.
Right, for sure. And I think when you threw in the car as a control, just to see what a normal vehicle would do, that, properly outfitted with tires, that the stopping distance was still on par at almost twice the weight.
Well, I would say that, even though we maybe didn't have a whole lot of technology helping us today, I think we were able to at least give an example. Now, I guess the thing that we got to tell people is that, your mileage and your stopping distance may vary, but I think we really proved it today. So, I'm looking forward to our next test.
Maybe we can go find some new roads.
I think we're going to find some new roads in this Silverado, so stay tuned to the road trip with Clark and Park, and you never know what we're going to do next with, well, whatever vehicle they decide to give us. I'm Michael Clark.
I'm Brian Park.
Keep the shiny side up.
And the greasy side down.
The sunny side. No, wait a minute. Now I can't even remember what it is. Is it the shiny side? Forget it.
Hello, friends. Loud and fast here. Every business needs a leader, and the leader in the automotive information business in Manitoba is the Road Trip on Shaw TV. On the Road Trip, they talk about all kinds of cars. Sporty cars, like this Chevrolet Corvette with bucket seats and FM radio, this Toyota Camry Hybrid, which is practical and reliable, as well as even trucks. Trucks for work, trucks for play. Even classics like this 1966 Chevrolet Nova with power steering. So tune into the Road Trip on Shaw TV and keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down.
Rambler American made big news this year when it was list priced to compete with the foreign imports. Made more news in the performance trials at Daytona. Won Class 6 by outperforming other U.S. compacts in braking and acceleration. And now, Rambler American stirs up more excitement. This Rambler American with standard 199 cubic inch 6 and optional automatic transmission scored over 23 miles per gallon in this year's mobile economy run. On the grueling run over the Rockies from Los Angeles to Detroit, it averaged 23.36 miles per gallon as certified by the U.S. Auto Club. Performance winner, great on economy, and a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $1,839. Rambler American is your kind of car.